Hi, I'm Sergey Stark, you're watching Stark Games channel, and this is a new review of the March pre-order for Warcrow wargame and the game profiles of the new units that were shown recently. This episode was advised by one of the best tournament Warcrow players in Moscow, Pavel Privzentsev. Thank you, Pasha. So, in this new release, we've got representatives of 3 factions, and we will start with the Forest Elves of Syenann. For them, we've got Moss Hermit. In the lore, these are ancient elves who, by the end of the Great War and the splitting of the elven race, were so overwhelmed with grief that they left for the most remote corners of the forests. They lived there in total solitude, speaking only to the trees, and little by little they themselves became living trees. Trees that awaken only when the forest is threatened by some truly horrible danger. The Hermit miniature was the last miniature of the Syennann's model range. Congratulations! The Syenann now have every unit that was mentioned in the book. The Hermit Mini is a bit controversial to me. The torso is insanely well done, including the elf himself, and for example the raccoon sleeping in a little burrow on his back. But the overall look, for me, is thrown off by those long bare limbs and the branches. I want more leaves on him and more volume. Still, this is a model made from amazing Unicool, and it will make elf players happy not only visually, but also during assembly. Now let's look at the profile. 35 points, which is actually pretty cheap for Syenann, but the stats and the attack profile are very average. The only thing that's genuinely nice is intimidating 1. But don't rush to judge this tree too harshly, because with elves, everything is about synergy with other units. First, it has the numerous keyword, which lets the rest of your army use all its forest-related special rules. Second, if you can get this ancient tree up to the front line, and elves have plenty of tools for that, for example Warcrow of the Leaf Storm and a guaranteed Syenann forest, it creates a very dangerous zone for your opponent. Its attack and defense switches let it pull the opponents in, smack them in the ass with vines and pile on stress for common token. But keep in mind, the common token ability can be used only once per activation. The really interesting part starts if the opponent demoralizes the Hermit, because it simply turns into a piece of terrain, immune to almost all effects, including displaces. It can't move, but its abilities keep working. That's a very nasty enemy for slow armies and armies that like to clump up. Now let's look at support release for the Kingdom of Feudom. In March, Selas needs, yeah? And the Royal Falconer will be joining the Army of Kingdom. In my opinion, this is the tastiest release for the Knight faction. The models are beautiful and also extremely playable. You basically want to buy all of them if you play Feudom. After this release, Feudom players will have only 2 boxes left: the Majestic Griffon Riders, regular and named one. And of course the Mounted Knights of the Kingdom, the main symbol of the faction. So let's start with the Royal Falconer. They're exactly what they look like: solo skirmish shooters, scouts and backline screeners, using their birds for sabotage too. His mini is unfortunately, like the rest of this release, made of Seocast, but it looks really good. It's nice that it's a charismatic old man with a gorgeous bird, and is always with Corvus Belli. There are tons of little details. I really love the tiny piece of meat for the bird on his belt. In the game, this is an excellent and very cheap scout for 15 points, making up for his tiny 2 HP solo body with elven camouflage. You can choose him as a target from beyond 7 strides if he's standing next to terrain, so he can efficiently steal enemies' objectives. On top of that, this sneaky grandpa can arrange 18 from himself. Hand out stress and any state you want to the enemy units. No doubt the Falcon learned by Vergana. And during allied activation, he can potentially remove opponent's defensive dice, which for example combined with the vulnerable state that he himself applied before, that's already -2 dice from the defensive pool of any enemy unit. That's pretty cool, I believe. But a Grandpa doesn't stand out for combat skills, but he already does more than enough for 15 points. A fantastic model both in terms of rules and as a miniature. Unfortunately, again, it's Seocast. Next, we've got two versions of Selas priestesses. Priestess of Selas, it's a cheap support for 20 points with the noble and spellcaster keywords. In the lore, she's the blood and soul of Feudom's priesthood. She's always support you, comfort you, empower you, and if needed, she will also whack the enemy with a mace. We all saw this mini a long time ago, back in the adventurous days, and in the book too. In the game, she can't join units, and she has two useful spells. One lets you fix in any die value on the defense, and just to be clear, that's the strongest mechanic in the game. And as a bonus, it gives affected unit the ability to bite back for 2 damage while defending, which is pretty good considering not many units in the game has defenses dices on their attacks. The second spell lets you remove up to 2 states, 2 tinge tokens and 2 points of stress from all allies within 12 strides, and all of this through sheer fate. At the cost of taking a few tinges onto yourself? Very strong option. In the end, Priestess is an excellent support unit. She gives very solid stress management to a faction that almost doesn't have it. And she powers up key units, turning them into walking tanks. The name version of Priestess is Armelle of Northsby. She is from the capital of Feudom's northernmost province, Northern Marks. And she's known for her love of her native fjords, her ability to hop around like a mountain god, which is even reflected in her keywords, and for giving allies the strength and toughness of the northern folk. She doesn't have a separate model. Corvus Belli suggests we use the same miniature as the basic priestess, but we all remember we've got that gorgeous Ludivine mini from Adventures, and it's banned at tournaments, so the mini is just collecting dust on the shelf, so use it! She is more expensive than basic version, 25 points, but she can do more. First of all, Armelle also can't join units, but she can stand on the front line herself, with a pretty solid base defense. Additionally, for a stressing, she also adds 2 black dice to defense pool, and on a switch she gets 2 shields. She has 2 almost identical spells, one defensive and one offensive. The defensive one gives all allies a middling level of protection from magic, dispel, but the most important thing is the elite rule on defense and an ignore wound every activation. The offensive version gives immunity to the strongest states in the game, disarm and vulnerable, a reroll of 2 target dice and also elite on attack rolls. A friendly reminder, the elite rule is one of the most useful rules in the game, because it turns empty icons on the dice into filled icons. Her passive ability also lets her save actions on casting when she making charge or assault. She charges and then for free she making spell. So I can say Armelle is a great unit. I would say it's the best unit in this Feudom release, but then the Instructor steps onto the stage. After many years of service in the Order of Selas, priestesses have a few career options. Leave the Order, pretty rare choice. Became an Inquisitor, respectable. Or became an Instructor and teach young neophytes at the Alvinian monastery how to perform rituals for dealing with the undead, boosting the fertility of peasant women and potato fields, and of course healing knights. But if the situation calls for it, the mother instructors are always ready to remember the old days and go show by example how you're supposed to toss elves off the cliff into the sea. The Instructor mini fits that story, a powerful woman. It's just a shame she's made of Seocast. In the game, she's the only model in the whole release that can join units, and she can join any infantry. She costs a comfort 25 points, has a very confident profile, excellent dice both on attack and defense, plus some solid switches, and even solo she has First Conquest, which is kind of wow. The only weak spot for that madam is her 2 wounds, meaning she will be the first target for Verkana, Telia and basically every hero hunter. In her solo profile, she only has a 1 passive ability. It lets her move all friendly units that became the target of a friendly spellcaster. That ability is very useful because the Feudom faction is pretty static and many Feudom spells are massive. But the main thing with her is the joined unit profile. First, the movement passive stays. This woman literally has to be carried around in people's arms. You get it? Second, she adds the full set of stats to the unit. Moral, conquest, dice for defense and offense, and even a willpower die, an orange one. For a common token, she loudly sings Psalm 21, which motivates her unit like crazy, and they get the elite rule on their next attack during that activation, and +1 die from Will into damage, the yellow one. Her another passive ability is tuned primarily for fighting Scions of Yaldabaoth, but in general it has a wide range of use. It subtracts 1 hit and 1 shield from the rolls of everyone who has Tinge, Golem, Large and Spellcaster keywords, and that is a very wide set of units. So, the Instructor is a great addition to the faction. I am sure she will be in every list. She looks amazing with knights and looks very funny with barrel guys. A little bit worse with Gizermirs. And we're moving to the last block. It's also elves, but not Syenann. That's some elves who stuffed themselves with Tinge. Corvus Belli keep re-releasing science models and cards that came out during adventures, with new sculpts, unfortunately mostly in Seocast, which does not always make them better. But to the new Scions of Yaldabaoth profiles. But the new Scions of Yaldabaoth profiles, especially in this release, really worked for me. You know, ever since these Dark Elves first announced, I picture them as a faction that plays around the Tinge. You know, does combo some stuff, can build it up and cash it in, summon undead and infect others with Tinge. But before, Scions of Yaldabaoth didn't have any of that. And with this release, I finally saw it. Finally saw Scions of Yaldabaoth I want to play. Now, Scions finally have a huge potential for a very interesting, non-standard play with lots of unusual combos and interactions, way more than all the other factions. It even made me want to buy more minis of Scions, but the pile of shame of hegemony and tribes are staring at me judgmentally from the shelves, and I just can't. So, let's start with the unit that had the hardest ability in the game. A master infiltrator assassin who takes the form of his victims, a specular killer from the world of Warcrow. Namaoin. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So, why head? Because now his complicated but unique rule for infiltrating into enemy units is gone. Now he's turned into an ambusher who steals objectives. His stats are so-so, only 2 wounds like a normal solo character, first conquest, not bad, average dice on attack and defense, but on switches he can generate stress, and his passive ability forces the opponent to take a will test and gain even more stress. And in return, for every stress on the attacker, Namaoin gets a shield in defense. So in theory, he can defend himself. But in practice, he will get deleted by the first switch with inflict damage. And right now those are like almost everyone. Now to his main ability. When Namaoin contesting an objective, all enemy units contesting the same objective losing conquest based on the stresses they have. For now it looks like he will pop out of ambush at the end of the game and almost guaranteed take the objective you need. Or he can enter on the second or third turn and try to survive on the point, on the objective. If there aren't any enemy units with the inflict switches nearby, he can possibly made it. Sneaky, nasty, but he totally lost everything that was described in the lore. That's not the fearsome killer doppelganger anymore. And for the price of 25, how much do you want him to play? But let's move forward to the another completely reworked unit, Aodharu, or as people call it, the Pearl. In the lore, it's a golem assembled from body remains, mostly arms and legs, judging by the miniature, and animated using tinge. A creature that terrifies any normal living being just by the fact of its irrational and irritating nature and structure. The new mini is decent, but honestly I like the old one from Adventures much more. Mainly because I do not understand why the Crossbelly shoved a Yeti leg into this golem. I get that they want to show the mix of bodies the golem is made from, but then they should have using parts from different races: orcs, dwarves, elves, phalanx. Why is everything human except that leg? And why Yeti at all? Either way, in the game the unit got way better. Yes, it only has 3 wounds, and the rest of the states are kind of average, but its attack is pretty solid, and the main thing is the awesome keywords: Intimidating 2, Bloodlust, and Golem. And that's where a real interaction with the tinge and stress are stepping in. Now they can ignore wounds for tinge, and any hero with the virtuoso keyword can resurrect it within 7 strides near themselves, which means you don't have to afraid to lose that model, because you can quickly throw out Haru to whatever you need it. Aodharu's attacks and its main ability are heavily tied to stress, which it can generate in insane amounts on its own. With Aodharu, the faction got a very sticky trading piece that can cause a lot of problems to the enemy by generating tons of stress, trading its own HP with the opponent's units, while it easily comes back at full. And opponent can't drive it off with the stress either, because it's a golem. And now we finally get a new unit, Lifted. In the lore, these are the best units of the progenitors, with one less step left before earning the same title. Scions of Yaldabaoth believe that far from all knowledge and skills can be passed down with words. Some things can only be learned through personal experience. And at this final stage of training, the progenitors share their senses and even minds with chosen students, so they could exchange information directly, and the Lifted became a kind of proxy for the progenitors. By the way, there is an interesting detail on the cards. The spell of Lifted is called the Blessing of Matalaza. Looks like that's a name of the third Aster we just learned. Aster is the mysterious precursors of the current civilization who created elves. Before this, we only knew the name of 2 Asters, Yaldabaoth himself and Makaira, the patron of Nuada. So, in the game terms, Lifted is a good support unit that can generate tinge for its army, which then triggers different abilities, including its own. The problem is its high price, 13 points. It has the keyword tinge and spellcaster, and also you should also pay attention to his first conquest. One interesting thing: it has the potential in a single activation to make 3 attacks, 2 via a spell and 1 via plain shooting, while also every of this attack being able to move enemies by 5 strides. That's genuinely very good table control within 12 strides. But its defense is basically non-existent and he have only 3 wounds, 3 HP. So you have to use him very carefully. And finally, we've got a named lifted, Gitmalu, the perfect one. Though in reality she's a completely unique hero with no ties to the lifted in its lore. And in my opinion, she's literally the star of this whole release, and maybe even of the entire Scions of Yaldabaoth faction, which her lore reflects perfectly. She's an absolutely heretical creation of a forgotten progenitor who set himself an unthinkable goal by science standards to create an absolutely perfect elf born naturally. And he did it. And Gitmalu is so perfect that nobody is able to hurt her. Even the science can bring themselves to raise a hand to ruin this perfection with their so-called modifications and improvements. You can't improve what's already perfect. And because of that, she's hated and admired at the same time. The only thing that's not perfect about Gitmalu is her miniature that actually doesn't exist. And we're supposed to use the lifted model. And as I mentioned, it's not only made of CO cast, but the sculpt itself is just not good, in my opinion. Look at it. What is that larvae cloak and that crooked face? I really hope there will be an alternative model one day, because on the artwork, Gitmalu is genuinely beautiful. Gitmalu has a very modest cost for what she can do, 25 points. Of course, she has the perfect keyword lit, the perfect second conquest, and also the keywords tinge and spellcaster. But the main thing is that she has the most unique stats profile in the entire game. She has no attack or defense profile, because she can take them from other units. Her only spell, unique, at a huge distance of 18 strides, lets her make an attack against 1 or 2 targets using their own attack profiles with switches, but without option to stressing out. Her another ability, Unreachable, lets Gitmalu defend using the profile of literally any units on the battlefield that she can see. So keep anointed or echo units in her loss and the girl will be fine. Or steal the opponent's defense profile. Moreover, her passive skill Perfect lets her simply leave melee without provoking any opportunity attacks, so she can, I don't know, for example, shoot afterwards. And her last ability, probably the key one, called Exquisite, brings her to the top tier of the faction. It gives all friendly units the ability to win the conquest objectives when conquest is tied with no loss requirement. A fantastic, a perfect one unit by the combination of lore and game rules. I really loved her. The only thing she's afraid of is Vercana, like all solo models. So do your best to protect this unique snowflake, because you only have one and she will win you more than one game in return. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, hit like, smash the bell and write in the comments which unit from the upcoming release you like the most. And if you enjoy my content, also you can subscribe to the Boosty. It's another version of Patreon. New episodes come there earlier, giveaway happens there, and there is also separate chat for patrons. You watched Star Games. See you next time. And don't forget to be kind and attentive to the birds and animals. They need your protection and your help. And please do not feed birds bread. It can kill them. See ya.